Massachusetts real estate market crashing in 2025. There's a lot of headlines and news that you'll read, but today we're going to cut right through it. Rather than pretending the entire country has the same exact market, first we're going to zoom out and look at what's happening around the country. Then we'll break down the latest numbers here in Massachusetts. And finally, we're going to get hyper-local with a deep dive into southern Massachusetts, specifically Bristol County, Plymouth County, Norfolk County, those areas. So whether you're a buyer, seller, or someone who just likes to watch the headlines, we're going to give you a deep dive into what's actually going on. And stay tuned to the end because I'm going to give you a prediction on what I think will happen for the rest of the year and moving forward. All right, so before we can tell you where the market is heading, we need to first look back at the last 5 years to really give you a grasp of what today's market really is. So here's a look at how the real estate market has been performing since 2020. Again, starting first nationally and then looking local at Massachusetts and southern Massachusetts. All right, so over the last 5 years since 2020, the average house has gone up 30%. Here in Massachusetts, that number is 40%. And even more locally here in southern Massachusetts, Bristol County, the average home, single family, multifamily condo has gone up about 45% on average. So obviously that's a substantial jump. And if you even push that back to 2019 and 2018, the same type of growth was occurring then as well. So why did this happen? The two primary reasons for it were extremely low interest rates. We're talking 2.5%, 3%, and extremely tight housing inventory. So interest rates today are at 6.5% to 7%, and housing inventory has improved slightly nationally, but not tremendously. What's considered a buyer's market is when we have 5 to 6 months of housing supply in the real estate market. During that 2020 to 2024, 2025 boom, we saw housing supply drop to just 1 to 2 months of housing supply. And just so you know what housing supply is and how it's calculated, if you have 100 homes on the market in a town and 20 homes per month sell on average in that town, then the housing supply in that town would be 5 months, right? But in this boom type period from 2020 to 2025, if there were 20 houses on the market and 20 houses sold, there's only 1 month of supply. And so we're not really filling the inventory. Everything that's listed is selling almost right away, right? That's what created that super hyper competitive market. So this combination of very low interest rates and very tight housing supply or inventory is what created that hyper competitive market that pushed prices high year over year over year. So what's happening today and what's changed since then? As I just mentioned, the big change is interest rates. About halfway through 2022, we saw interest rates start to go up, and they've been holding high at 6.5% to 7% for the last 2 to 2.5 years. And it's starting to take shape and affect more and more on the market. And so what we're seeing today isn't a crash, it's more of what we would call a de-escalation. A de-escalation in that rapid increase in housing prices. So instead of home prices going up 10 to 15% a year on average, they're going up at much smaller values. However, we don't really have a catalyst for a crash in today's market. We don't have a subprime mortgage crisis on the way. There aren't really subprime loans in the market anymore. Homeowners have plenty of equity in their homes, so there isn't really a chance for a foreclosure crisis like we had in 2008. But the difference is that we still have pretty tight inventory. And so we are still seeing homes appreciate rather than decrease overall. So let's look at the data nationally today and what's going on. So again, nationally, the theme across the country today is a cool down. Home prices are going up just a tiny bit and inventory is starting to tick up slightly as well. And there's way less homes being sold overall. So in today of June of 2025, the average home value has only gone up 0.8% year over year since June of 2024. That's a big difference than in previous years. The total number of homes being sold is minus 6%. So there's less overall homes being sold, overall sold volume nationally in today's real estate market. Another big change we've seen is the average days on market, right? How long are homes sitting on the market before they sell? That number has gone up to 38 days on the market on average. That's plus 6 days from 2024. So we're seeing homes move slower, which is a sign of less demand. And we talked about inventory. Housing supply has gone up 14% since June of 2024 as well. So there's more homes on the market. So again, we aren't in the negatives nationally, but we are getting closer. And in some local markets, they are seeing some negative valuations in homes year over year. Those are typically in areas where a lot of people moved to during COVID and where builders invested heavily in new neighborhoods and new communities and building up a lot of inventory. But that's just the story nationally. So let's take a look at the story today in Massachusetts and how that differs from the national market. Massachusetts has been much more resilient than the national home market. The average home price in Massachusetts has gone up 6.4% year over year, so it's more growth. The total number of homes sold is down 0.6% from the year before, so that's following a similar sort of theme. And the average days on market is only 20 days, which is less nationally, but it is plus 2 days from what it was in June of 2024. Homes are still spending more days on the market, even here in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is still following the same trend of inventory ticking up, plus 13% more homes on the market today in June of 2025 compared to June of 2024. So as you can see, Massachusetts real estate market is still a little stronger than the national market and is showing more signs of resilience. But let's take a look at Bristol County and how that differs from Massachusetts as a whole. Here in Bristol County, home prices are up 2.9% year over year, and the average price of a house is $525,000. The total number of homes sold year over year in Massachusetts is plus 0.3%, so still a little bit more homes being sold this year. The average days on market is 21 days, so it's plus one more day than last year, so that's on a similar sort of trajectory as the state as a whole. And housing supplier inventory is up 10.6% in Bristol County, so it's still more year over year, but a little bit less than the state as a whole. So as you can see, Bristol County is on the similar sort of path as Massachusetts on a whole. It's performing better than the country as a whole, but performing a little bit under where Massachusetts is performing as itself as a state as a whole. So just summarizing these results, right? Why is Massachusetts and Bristol County performing better than the country as a whole? The main reason is because inventory is still pretty tight here compared to the rest of the country. Simply put, demand is too high. There's too many buyers and there's not enough sellers. We don't have the housing infrastructure or investment in new communities that the rest of the country has benefited from over the last 5 years, but not only the last 5 years, the last decade plus. Simply put, we are underbuilt here in Massachusetts in terms of new communities. Only 9% of home sales in Massachusetts are from new construction. Nationally, that number is 33%. And in some specific areas of the country, the number of real estate home sales are up to 50% as new construction. Right, so you can see this is a significantly lower number than the rest of the country as a whole. And it's what's contributed to our super tight inventory. And that's not just a trend that has happened year over year. That's a trend that's been happening for decades plus, right? So the result of which is exponential year over year. The infrastructure hasn't kept up with the population. And that's why we have tighter inventory here than some other areas of the country. But it's also why our home values have continued to go up, because the demand has remained high. With that said, interest rates have remained high for so long that there is some fatigue with buyers.
We're done here.
Yeah.
So if you're a home seller and you're preparing to sell your home, just understand that there is less demand today due to interest rates. Homes are sitting on the market here in Bristol County and in Massachusetts more as a whole. And so the important portion of that for you is to price your home correctly, right? What we're seeing is that the homes priced slightly under market value or at market value are moving. The home prices that are priced aggressively are the ones that are sitting on the market, and they are sitting on a market for a lot longer than they used to, right? Just to give you an anecdote here of a few homes that I've sold recently in Bristol County. I had a home in Rainham that we priced what I thought was under market value, and that was in the first time home buyer range, that home as well. And it had 13 offers on it, and all 13 were above asking and looking to move. Inversely, I also had a listing in Berkeley where we priced it above where we thought the market value was, and it was a higher priced home in itself, right in the 700s, and that home sat for months and months and months. So if you're not pricing your home and attracting buyers with that price point, then you expect your home to sit. And so sweet, so now I'm gonna make a prediction like I told you. What's the rest of the year going to look like? I'm gonna predict what some economists called stagflation.
Yeah, we are in stag.
We are.
If interest rates continue where they are right now, at the 6.5% to 7% level plus, we're going to continue to see the very slow growth that we've been seeing over the last year and a half. And if interest rates go down, you can expect to see demand immediately jump up and home prices and valuations start to jump up as well. Because the demand is there, and we do have an inventory problem that isn't getting solved, and there is no quick solution to. And so just recapping the video overall here, is the real estate market crashing in 2025? Not exactly, especially not here in Massachusetts. But it's definitely not booming anymore. And if you want the real story on what's happening in Massachusetts and not just headlines, hit that subscribe button below. We make local content videos for Bristol County in southern Massachusetts. We've got more local content and videos coming your way. And if you live in Bristol County and think the Zestimate is an accurate price for your home, you definitely need to hit that subscribe button. And further, if you're thinking of buying or selling in Massachusetts, feel free to reach out. I'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to be your local resource and go-to person for real estate here in southern Massachusetts. So let's talk. My contact details are below, and I'll see you on the next one.